Welcome! In the first half of the 19th century, the northern United States went through a huge industrial transformation. We're about to break down exactly how it all went down, from the small workshop to the giant factory floor. We're going to dig into the key events and people from this time, and along the way, we'll answer some really critical questions. By the end of this, you'll have a super clear picture of this game-changing period.
Okay, here's the plan. We'll tackle this in 4 parts. First, how stuff was made, then the new economy that popped up, how people and goods started moving around, and finally, how all of it totally reshaped American society.
First up, let's look at how the very idea of work changed. We're talking about a massive shift from skilled hands making individual items to machines in factories just pumping out goods.
So before factories, you had artisans. Think of a master shoemaker. He controlled his whole business from start to finish. But this new economy created the wage worker, who might do just one single repetitive task over and over all day long.
Now, the bridge between these two worlds was something called the putting out system. Merchants would take a complex job, like making a shoe, and break it into tiny steps. They'd pay one family just to cut the soles and another just to stitch the tops, all from their own homes for a set wage.
And this process, called de-skilling, was a really big deal. It meant that you didn't need years of training as an apprentice anymore. This brought production costs way down, and of course, it brought workers' wages down with them. The true factory system really came to America thanks to a guy named Samuel Slater. In what was basically a huge act of industrial espionage, he memorized the blueprints for advanced British textile mills, and then he rebuilt them in Rhode Island. His work kicked off 2 different models for factory labor.
Slater's own Rhode Island system hired whole families and paid them in credit that they could only use at the company store. But the other big one, the Waltham system, did things differently. Now, who did the Waltham system mills mostly hire?
That's right. The Waltham-Lowell system became famous for employing young women from rural farm families. They lived in company-owned boarding houses with super strict rules about their behavior. This was partly to reassure their parents back home and to keep the workforce disciplined.
And the result of all this new production? A flood of consumer goods. Seriously, for the first time ever, things that used to be luxuries, like clocks or carpets or iron cook stoves, became common in middle-class homes. It totally changed daily life.
So the main takeaway here is this: that fundamental change in how goods were made is what set the stage for a completely new kind of American economy.
This new way of making things didn't just change workshops. It created a wild, nationwide market economy. It was a system that was all about incredible growth, but also some pretty devastating crashes. A big part of this new economy was fueled by people moving west. There was this craze called Ohio fever that just swept the nation. Thousands of people rushed west to buy cheap land from the federal government, sometimes for as little as $1.25 an acre. But all of this fast, risky expansion led straight to America's first major economic depression, the Panic of 1819. It was a total boom and bust cycle. Risky loans created a massive bubble, and when crop prices fell over in Europe, the whole bubble burst back home.
So, what was the main cause of the panic? Just remember, it was out-of-control speculation, mixed with a sudden drop in farm prices. That combo triggered a huge wave of people defaulting on their loans, which caused banks to fail.
To try and help the people who got hurt by the crisis, the government had to step in. You had the Land Law of 1820 and the Relief Act of 1821, which made it easier for farmers to buy and keep their land. States also passed laws to stop foreclosures.
At the same time, this era was defined by incredible innovation. Take Eli Whitney's cotton gin from 1794. It could clean seeds from cotton way faster than a person could by hand. But, tragically, instead of making slavery obsolete, it just massively increased the demand for enslaved labor to grow even more cotton.
And inventions just kept reshaping the country. In 1807, Robert Fulton's steamship engine made traveling on rivers faster, cheaper, and way more reliable because you no longer had to depend on wind or currents. This was a complete game changer for American trade.
So the key here is the double-edged sword of this new economy. You have amazing innovation right alongside terrifying instability. Now, let's see how the country physically connected all this new activity.
Right. So all this new economic energy created a huge need to move goods and people, and to do it quickly and cheaply. This need sparked the transportation revolution.
The main drivers of this whole revolution were government-funded roads, state-chartered canals like the famous Erie Canal, and brand-new steam-powered railroads. Just to be clear, the internal combustion engine was not a factor at all during this period.
National projects like the Cumberland Road were absolutely vital arteries. This highway, which got started in 1811, gave thousands of settlers and all their stuff a direct path from Maryland deep into the West.
Canals had an even bigger impact. The Erie Canal was this incredible feat of engineering that connected the Hudson River all the way to the Great Lakes. Soon after it opened, it was carrying $15 million worth of goods every single year. It's what turned New York City into the commercial powerhouse of the nation.
The benefits were just immense. I mean, it created a truly national market. It let Western farms feed people in Eastern cities and let Eastern factories supply goods to settlers out West. And it really cut down on the isolation of rural life.
This new infrastructure was basically the physical network, the veins and arteries, that made the country's entire economic transformation possible. Okay, so these huge economic shifts didn't just change how people worked, they created a whole new social landscape with really distinct and often conflicting class divisions. In the North, you basically saw three main classes emerge. You had the economic elite, who often inherited their money. Then there was a growing and kind of anxious middle class, who valued hard work and morality more than anything. And finally, a huge urban working class, who often lived a really tough existence. And these classes had very different opinions on slavery. While the rich elite often had financial ties to the Southern cotton trade, it was the northern middle class that really became the main group supporting abolition. To them, slavery was the exact opposite of their core value, that you earn respectability through your own hard work, not by forcing others to labor. Self-made men like the inventor Peter Cooper were the poster children for this new ideal of upward mobility. He later founded Cooper Union in New York, a school that offered a free education based purely on merit, not on your family name. Now, the working class, who were facing long hours and low pay, were looking for an escape. They were the main audience for cheap, popular entertainment like P.T. Barnum's American Museum, with all of its fantastic and often totally fake oddities. So the crucial point here is that this new social order, with these deep divides between the classes, would end up defining a lot of the cultural trends and political fights of the 19th century. All right, time for a super fast recap. Let's lock in the must-know facts that directly answer those key review questions you might have.
Let's run through them. First, deskilling broke down skilled crafts into simple, repetitive tasks. Second, the Panic of 1819 was caused by risky bank loans and a drop in crop prices. Third, remember 1807? That's when Robert Fulton invented the game-changing steamship engine. Fourth, early on, most U.S. migrants were heading west toward Ohio. Fifth, the Cumberland Road was a big deal because it gave those settlers a much faster way to get west. Sixth, the northern middle class was the group that most strongly supported abolishing slavery. And finally, Peter Cooper represented that new ideal of moving up in the world through merit and hard work, not because of who your parents were.
So this whole period of transformation really set the stage for what was coming. As you keep studying, think about how these deep economic changes and new social divisions, especially those conflicting ideas about labor and slavery, would just add fuel to the fire, leading right up to the Civil War.